record to the cloud. All right. Hello, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you so much for joining us. I believe today is our 23rd meeting. Wow. So we have some exciting things to share today, but we will start as we do usually by introducing ourselves, sharing where we are speaking from, land acknowledgement, any affiliation you have with a group or a company, access needs, and discovery or challenge from this week. We have all of those prompts in the chat. Thank you so much, Danny, for putting those for us. I will go ahead and start. We also put in the chat, if you want to call in order to introduce yourselves, please go ahead and put your name in the chat. So I will start in model. My name is Kholoud Sawaf, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm speaking to you from Fayetteville, Arkansas, which is the ancestral homeland of the Osage, the Quapaw, and the Caddo people. My access needs are met, and I'm part of the Calling Up Justice team. And what else? A challenge or a discovery this week. I think I'm very much thinking about, like, I directed the production right before we shut down. We never got to perform, and now I'm very much dealing with the question of, like, when you get asked to revive that production, and it's like for a Zoom, and you're like, it's almost like a different production. So how do you like translate the work you did, but reimagine it for the new space? So I'm very much alive with that challenge, and it's like not really a reviving, but it is a reviving because it's the same cast and same team and same theater. So I'm very much alive with what that means to reimagine something you created in a physical space to a digital space. And I haven't arrived to a new happy medium, but I will keep you posted when I do. And I am passing it to Robin. Oh no, not Robin.
Hi everybody, I'm Danny. I'm talking to you from the land of the Ohlone people here in the Bay Area. Gender pronouns, she, her, hers. I'm affiliated with Calling Up Justice as the administrative producer. My access needs are met. I'm having a lovely smoothie. And then I don't really have any challenges or discoveries this week. Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. I'm super excited to hear Amanda talk today. I mean, personally, because I was like, Amanda, come talk to us. So like, I have a little bias in this situation, but you know. I'm gonna pass it to Robin.
Thank you, Danny. My name is Robin Braun. Pronouns are she, her, hers. I work for the mountain play in the traditional lands of the coastal Miwok and the Ohlone, colonially known as Marin County. And my access needs are being met. I'd say one challenge right now is not succumbing to overwhelming sadness based on the environment, based on all the racial injustice that continues to happen, based on everything that seems like my whole world is imploding. So that's a challenge. And looking forward to hearing what Amanda has to present. And that's me. Passing it on to Carlos Alexis.
Saludos, colegas. I'm Carlos Alexis Cruz. I'm calling from the land of the Shigeri and Catawba people, known as Charlotte, North Carolina. I also bring to the table I'm Puerto Rican, so my heritage from the Taino people is present in pictures, in my body, and in my life. My access needs have been met, although, you know, we continue to juggle, as many of us, the kids at home, you know, homeschooling life. We just got told that we are delayed to in person at the earliest October 1st, but two of our bigger campuses. I teach at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, so NC State and UNC Chapel Hill already went online, so we don't understand why that hasn't been met. You know, obviously economics and all of the bureaucratic thing that is behind it is unfortunate, but that's the reality that is in it. And I guess we as people have to like juggle that. I feel a little odd today too because the Air Force One landed like an hour ago here for the RNC. So it's a weird week to be in Charlotte, North Carolina. My troop, I run a social service company called the Nuvasit Project, and we cannot be at the studio because of the RNC event, so we decided to be at the park over the weekend, and that causes a potential disruption because of police being highly present all over the place and being on BIPOC people in this troop. It can be lend to confusion, but actually there was some kind of beautiful moments over the weekend that you'll hear more about it in social media and stuff. But anyhow, I appreciate opening mind weeks with y'all. Like, it's a great conversation. It's another group to kind of continue to bounce ideas so we make sense of things. So I'm here and I'm a little all over the place because of everything that I mentioned, but I'm slowly getting back on track. And I'm gonna pass this to Scarlett, I believe.
Hi, I'm Scarlett Rivera, she, her, hers on Canarsie land here in Brooklyn in Greenwood Heights. I am a co-founder of Letter of Marque Theater Company as well as Brooklyn Improv Training. My access needs are currently being met. And I guess the biggest challenge is this feeling completely reaching out and not sure, like I feel like I'm reaching out to marshmallows, trying to constantly come in with community as this time of year is just so hard to get people together, and I'm really feeling that. But I am doing an in-person improv tonight, so hopefully that will lift my spirits. I am passing it to Sabrina. Thank you.
Hi, this is Sabrina coming to you from Western Massachusetts in the traditional lands of the Nipmuc and Pecumtuck people. It's where I should have just been closing what would have been the 29th annual Co-Festival of Performance of Original Devised Work that was supposed to be on an eco-justice theme this year. I use the pronouns she, her, hers. My access needs are met. One of my delights this week was yesterday I was able to attend the digital Toronto Poetry Slam that Tana from our group has been so such a key part of. And I really encourage this group to keep posting links to your work. I learned so much from the times that I'm able to join it. And I know there are things that I'm not knowing about. So please, let's keep each other posted. My other news is that I actually just amazingly, miraculously, because we've traditionally been a very ill-funded organization, but we just got some funding. And yeah. And, I usually am writing grants for $500, $750, and this is like, and so part of my challenge now is, and I can use it within a year from September 1st. So what portion do I try to push into the digital realm, and what do I keep sort of in reserve for in-person work, and trying to balance those things out is, I think, it'd be my next challenge for weeks to come. And you all may be a very valuable sounding board as I try to figure that out. I think, Amanda, you're next.
Unmute. Can you hear me? Great. Hi, Amanda Mason, she, her, hers. I'm coming to you from the land of the Ohlone people in the Bay Area, where it is very, very smoky, although better today than yesterday. I am the production manager for Aurora Theater Company, as well as a freelance stage manager / video producer. Because New World. My access needs are met. My children are in daycare. I have some time to myself. Challenge this week. I'll second the trying not to fall into depression of all the things in the world. Definitely a lot going on, especially with all the fires around here. So that is a little overwhelming. But yeah, pressing forward. Also, time management has been a thing. I all of a sudden have more work and obligations than I could ever dream of. So I am now passing it to Tanya.
Hi, thanks, Amanda. Tanya here, they, them pronouns. My access needs are to be off camera and move around for this part of the meeting as my lunch break. And I am zooming in from Toronto, as mentioned. The traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, the Petun, the Mississauga of the New Credit, and it's a dish with one spoon territory. So we just had our 10th show online last night, the Toronto Poetry Slam, and numbers continue to be low in this season, where even in a physical venue we would have less people. And I, from monitoring some other events, I saw 100-person sort of sold out Zoom event last Thursday, Disability Justice Ontario, featuring Alice Wong and Leah Lakshmi Pepazina Samsarina, if I'm saying that right. And so that was refreshing, because I'd seen a lot of events that were fewer and fewer people, but some events are at capacity. So very curious still about like what that engagement needs or looks like. That's a bit of a challenge. And I'm passing now to Joshua.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joshua Waterstone, he, him, his pronouns, and I'm joining from the Bay Area, the land of the Ohlone people. In terms of affiliations, I'm an associate artist with Fool's Fury. I've also worked with Ragged Wing Ensemble, and I'm acting newly now as an understudy with SF Shakes in King Lear, and their upcoming of Merry Wives, if it actually winds up going to school. We'll see if that happens. My access needs are met, but with the smoke, I am finding myself coughing. So I might have some issues just speaking, I think. I'm a freelance actor, director, and fight choreographer as well. A challenge or discovery, I would say, is just self-care this week. And this weekend, just allowing for silence and stillness and growth amongst the wildfires and the pandemic and racial justice and everything else that's going on. And it looks like I am passing to Heather.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Heather, she, her, hers, zooming in from the land of the Ohlone people, Chochenyo speaking, which I recently discovered people are speaking this language again, which I find very inspiring. Let's see. I'm a freelance director, but I'm fascinated by the digital realm and really excited to make work in this new medium now during the pandemic and hopefully beyond. Well, my access needs are met, but I may be having turn my camera off periodically. So one thing that I've been thinking about lately is, and I'm glad other people have brought up just during their introductions, is finding out about programming. Just because I learned so much watching other people. I mean, not only as an artist, just loving this storytelling as an audience member, but obviously as an artist, you learn so much from other people's work, and I want to see as much good digital work as I can. So I would love it. I mean, I haven't gone, I joined this group relatively late. I watched some of the earlier episodes from the beginning, so I don't know if this has been covered already, but I really am curious to know where other people are finding out about things. I mean, obviously, New York Times publishes their thing, I think once, I'm not sure, once a week, but I'm really wondering where else people, and we have a Facebook group, but where else do people find out about what's going on? I just feel like a lot of times I find out about things after the fact. And is somebody after me, or are we met? I'm not sure.
I think we are probably met, unless there is anyone else who would like to say hello. I think we are good. Yes. I add my voice to everyone who brought up the struggle to stay above water as the racial injustice continues to happen and as the world continues to fall apart around us as we try to tape whatever we can tape of it. Thinking of all the people who are in the Bay Area with the smoke. Please take care of yourselves. And I believe we have a project that Amanda would like to talk to us about it. Thank you so much, Amanda. But also if we have time at the end, if there are any conversations we'd like to have, whether in the breakout room or we could probably have them collectively, please feel free to post some of those questions in the chat. I took some notes specifically about the things that came up, but it would be great to, if there are any conversations that we would like to have collectively, to post any of that in the chat. And without further ado, I'm handing it to Amanda. Thank you so much, Amanda.
Present is a strong word. I am happy to talk to y'all about what I've been doing.
Share at whatever capacity.
Hi. So, you know, back in March, Aurora was like, what do? We can't do theater anymore. And we were 1 week into rehearsals for a show. So there was not even like we could film this and get it. It was like, no, we're just pulling the plug. We didn't have any good archival videos because we've never done anything with them. So we were basically like, that's it. Okay. And it took us a minute to start thinking about stuff. But we did right off the bat start a weekly talk show. That now we're on to season 2 with the new producing season of 2021. We decided to call it season 2. So we've been doing that now this whole time. We've only taken off a couple weeks for vacation and whatnot. But it literally is a talk show with our artistic director and our associate artistic director, and we have guests of artists. We had the mayor of Berkeley on. We had the executive producer of Downton Abbey on. We've had some pretty random things, but a lot of local artists and directors and playwrights and stuff too, which has been really fun to get to produce that every week. And we've gone full production on it. It's a talk show. We have different looks and slides and you know, make it all pretty and all that kind of stuff. So it's not just Zoom. I do produce it. And then we're about to kick off our season, which we've changed we've gotten rid of subscriptions and changed everything to a membership model. So now we're just trying to put out as many digital events for our members as possible. So we're doing a monthly membership salon, which is more conversation between our artistic director and artists. Margot Hall will be our first one this weekend. And then we're going to do a monthly book club. Our associate artistic director is doing an August Wilson book club, so we'll work the way through the canon for the whole year, one a month. We are producing an audio drama that will that will be live on October 23rd. That's new, commissioned by 3 playwrights, one of which being Lauren Gunderson, Cleavon Smith, and Jonathan Spector. So we commissioned them to write us an audio drama. So that's going live in October. We are doing our first reading workshop next in a couple weeks of one of the plays that was supposed to be in our season this coming year and was not. So we're a little busy. Aside from, and we've got a couple other things up in the air that we're working on. We did a big gala back in July. So I've been busy. with that all and trying to figure out how to be a theater company in the time of all this. And then I have also started picking up corporate gigs and doing what I would have done as a show caller, as a stage manager for the corporate gigs, except in the digital world, and making it a little fancier too. So I'm also now doing those. I did a healthcare event for Northwell Health last week with like a speaker from Johnson and Johnson. I mean, it was a pretty, like, there was, I think, 600 or so that were at the event. And then I'm doing one for the Arkansas Realtors in a couple weeks. But so I've like started picking up that kind of work too. So yeah, I'm doing a lot, but I didn't know how to do any of this before, and I'm learning on the fly. So thank you to Aurora for, you know, being willing to support me through all this. And I mean, they're obviously really happy that I have learned all of these skills, because it's made our content a lot better. I've watched some of these other chats that people are doing, and it really is, they're just hitting stream on Zoom. And the talking heads get old and they're a little boring and static, and it's not super exciting. I try and throw as much media into ours as possible, whether it's just production stills or whatever, or even just changing the layout so that it's not stagnant for that hour. Yeah, what do you want to know? I operate through Zoom. I bring all my guests in through Zoom and then put it through OBS and then stream out. For Aurora Connects, we're streaming to YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. For these corporate events, both of the ones I'm working on currently are with SpotMe, which is like a conference platform, which is really interesting platform that they like do all the back end. So they have polls and they have all the agenda, and it's meant for like long conferences where people can go in and click long digital conferences, and they have agendas for all the days and all the different things. And so yeah, I've kind of run the gamut of doing all of these things. I am not doing anything artistic. I am drawing the line at like the artistic part, and don't want, especially towards my artistic team, and saying, if you want content creation and you want things to be pretty and you want, you're talking about these digital scenes, and as soon as we get into the artistic design side, I'm like, I'm out. Not my job. I've been making that very clear that like, you guys ask me what you want and I will do what you want, and if you ask me to do something specific, I will figure out how to do it and I will learn how to do it. But I am not interested in being the scenic designer for any of these projects, because that I want to make sure our artists get work and continue to work. And that's not how my brain works. I can make things happen, but I'm a stage manager through and through. That is where my artistry comes, is making other people's dreams a reality. I do not try and create on my own. Yeah, what else do you want to know? I'm much better if people ask me questions.
I can ask a question. Oh, Scarlett has a question.
Oh, I was just going to ask, when you're making this adjustment and going on the fly, what were some of the adjustments you needed to do to your personal, I don't want to say computer or home life, what were the simple, like, top 3 things, I guess, that really made it easier to learn on the fly?
Yeah, so the computer was a big one. I had a work laptop, and that, after about week 1, we realized it wasn't going to cut it. And we had my technical director actually build me a computer, because he does that. He's a gamer, and like he was happy to do it. But yeah, you basically need a mid-level to high-level gaming computer, is the like answer to anytime anyone asks me like what the stats on their computer is. It's just get a gaming computer. So he actually built me one. I now have 3 monitors going at all times. I've, added my microphone and my webcam. Most of that was like, the microphone is me testing it out to see if it's worth it to get it for other folks. Like, I don't actually need to sound good. But for $20, it was worth trying to test it out and see how things go. But yeah, the computer was a big one. I also upgraded my internet to the gigabyte, so that I've got, big speeds. I'm really jealous of all the people in Berkeley who can get Sonic, because their speeds are so much better than mine. But I've got about 800 as a download and about 35 as an upload speed. So it's totally fine, and I haven't had any problems. But I am jealous of those Sonic people who get like 800 down and 800 up. Not fair. But yeah, so the computer's been one. I also, daycare started for me 2 weeks ago. I have 2 toddlers. So trying to do all of this with 2 toddlers. My son just turned 1, and my daughter will be 3 in November. So I mean, really little toddlers. It's been a thing trying to work with 2 toddlers. I definitely have taken a lot of phone calls on walks with them in the stroller and all of that. And luckily, everyone at Aurora has been really great with dealing with my family life. But I certainly can't be sitting on a computer while they're running around. So lots of late night meetings and conversations and work for sure. But yeah, I mean, I would say top 3 is computer, space, and the willingness to ask questions in Google. I've certainly made a lot of connections to other production managers or stage managers. If there's something that my artistic director sees in some other person's video and they're like, hey, I really liked how they did this, I just find the production person and send that person an email, because we're all in this together and everybody's had that attitude where it's like, I'm not going to sit and try and figure something out. I'm just going to be like, hey, how'd you do this? My artistic director likes it. I'd like to copy you. Can you just give me the info so that I don't... and people have emailed me asking those questions, and that's been a big thing too, is just sharing information. It looks like Josh asked, how are you moderating all your platforms where you're streaming to? Usually other staff members are helping me with that. We are trying to get more people to comment and talk to us, and honestly, our audience doesn't. So we haven't had too much of that going on. But Restream, which is the service I use to actually be able to stream to 3 places, which is pretty cheap. The first tier is like $20 a month. It integrates with OBS. So I have a chat bar on the side of my OBS that shows everything coming in. So in terms of getting that back to speakers and stuff like that, I can instantly copy and paste and get that to my speakers. And then our other staff members tend to be the ones to reply. But like last week, our marketing director was out on the day of a broadcast, and I just, responded via the Restream, and it comes through the different services because I have them all linked and blah, 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 blah. But yeah, Restream is great that it all connects. And there's a couple other services that do that too. I knew no OBS. I knew nothing about OBS. I did not know the word OBS before all this started. I literally knew nothing. I had used Zoom like once. I knew nothing about all of this at all. I just don't like producing a bad product. And I very quickly was like, okay, if Aurora's doing this, how do we make it better? If this is what we're doing, let's start doing it. And someone was like, oh, you want to, I think it was one of my sound designers, was like, oh, you should look at OBS. Because I was like, how do I make this better? And they were like, oh, do OBS. And I was like, oh, what's this OBS thing? And it started out really simple, and now I've gotten pretty fast and good. But again, I am not doing the artsy, I'm not doing virtual backgrounds. I'm not doing green screens. I'm not messing with any of that. I'm literally using it as a switcher, like the old video switchers, the big things that used to exist that don't anymore because we have computer programs. But yeah, I'm just using it as a switcher and, going back and forth between things in terms of media and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I knew nothing. Thank you for getting some chat going on, Heather. That'd be great. Yeah, we try. And I mean, we are doing it live to get some questions and stuff in there, and we try. We're trying to figure out how to really encourage our patrons to do that. But, we have a lot of old white patrons who are not super tech savvy. We only get about 20 to 40 people watching live a week. And then we get, depending on who our guest was, more watching the replay. I mean, we had Jim Carpenter last week. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of hits on that eventually. But yeah, there was only a 25 people, I think, watching live. Michael Asbury is a devoted fan, and he watches every single week and comments, and we love him for it because he's amazing. But yeah, this week we have Rafael Jesus Gonzalez, the poet laureate of Berkeley, will be on our episode this week. He's one of our advisory council members and is working a lot with Aurora. So it's super fun and interesting. I like not having to be on camera and that I'm just in the background. For our webinars and for these salons and stuff that we're doing, our current plan is we're going to just do them as Zoom webinars and then stream media and stuff. I don't know if you saw when I was started, but I had I can stream media back through my Zoom if it decides to work. There it goes. So this is for our webinars and stuff. I zoom my OBS straight through Zoom, and obviously, you know, the cameras are lined up correctly when I have real guests in here. But you know, we throw pictures up and stuff like that. But so for the webinars, we'll just do it straight through Zoom, and we are able to have that going on with everybody talking, and we're going to invite about 15 to 20 of our members to be panelists to actually have those conversations so that we get a little bit more of the live conversation aspect, but keeping it as a webinar so we don't have 200 people trying to have a conversation, but we're going to do like a lottery for the first amount of people who, you know, respond that they're coming, and we'll do a lottery and do that, so it'll be on, so that we'll have some of that conversation, which is what we're really looking for those, but with still the media and a little bit of shine going on through my screen. And we're still playing with it a little bit, but we'll spotlight my screen. So even though our speakers are talking separately, like the audience will just see my screen, and I'll feed the speaker's video back through my screen too. So sometimes the sound delay gets a little bit off by like a millisecond, but it's worth it to have it a little snazzier and prettier. And then when we start the conversation, we'll just go to a normal Zoom window and make it a little more casual. Yeah.
I have a quick question about when did you find that you needed that mid-level computer? So for example, like just doing the podcasts, or like when did you find that things were starting to crash so much? Like at one point, in other words, like could my company do like a Zoom reading on a regular computer, or would we even for that using OBS want to switch up to a mid-level, high-level gaming computer?
I did a couple episodes on my desktop or on my laptop that I was going through OBS, and it was slow, and there was some delay and some lag, but it was like you could do it. And I was, you know, I think if you have a good computer, you can do it. When I really started to have problems was when I tried to incorporate like videos or sound files. As soon as I started doing more than just Zoom and OBS, as soon as I started doing the third thing, it was like, nope, I'm out. And you can test it. I mean, testing it is really the best way to go, is just see what your computer can handle. If you go into your task manager, it'll show you how much of your CPU you're using. So if you like have OBS open and are streaming to whatever, you know, private link so that no one's actually watching you to test, and then look up your CPU. I mean, my laptop was running at 99.9%. Like I was pushing it. So yeah, it became very clear the second I started adding any sort of video that was like, nope, it couldn't handle it. Before I started adding videos, it was like, I can handle this, but not really liking it. So it just kind of depends.
And then the other question I have is, so we did an OBS workshop, but if there were any like videos that you used or really great resources, I would love to know about them so I can put them into our Discord and keep those just running, you know, so people can access those.
I have not kept track of anything. I literally Google, like, how do I scroll text?
Got it.
And like I click on the first thing and then zoom through it. I'm like, oh great, I can do this. And then I play with it. I do a lot of testing. I mean, that's honestly the best way that's how I understand things, is by doing them. So, you know, I Google the thing and I'm like, oh, you do this thing really quick? Okay, great. And then I go play with it until I understand the settings and understand it myself. I do lots of tests. Do lots of tests and lots of playing. And for the, go ahead.
No, sorry, I had a different question, but I don't want to interrupt you. So keep going, then I'll move
No,
on.
I was gonna show you my new play toy that I just started doing for this other event. If it'll load. Come on, there you go. Got scrolling buildings. It's gonna be my holding slide for the realtors. They wanted it to be sexy, so I made some scrolling buildings for them, and I'm gonna add some music and keep the realtors happy.
That's so great. I'm wondering about the process of how you decide the aesthetic for each event, like how, for each of the wonderful things that you said and you mentioned, how do you, in the company, or what's the process of deciding, like, we want something that's more elaborate visually here, such as the one that you just shared, or this is just a reading with nothing?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly been conversation. You know, we've got a marketing director and a graphic designer on Aurora staff. So I rely heavily on them to try and make those decisions, and I try and not make those decisions. But of course, I'm making a lot of them because, especially when we started, it's kind of been a lot of like me making a rough draft and showing it to them and being like, how does this look? And then they're like, oh, here, let me make it better. With the events that I've done too, that's kind of my plan, is that I've been doing kind of a rough draft and not making it perfect on purpose, so that then they shoot back exactly what they want in an image or whatever that I can use as a stencil. But certainly for Aurora stuff, we've got a graphic designer who I let lead on how the looks are for the most part. But like for our webinars and stuff, I don't think she's going to do too much. It'll probably just be me and the speakers, you know, deciding what it looks like. But yeah, like the first episode, we kind of have a template that we went off of. For season 2 of Aurora Connects, we revamped ourselves, and she made us a new background that's a little more fun. And so we spent, you know, her and I spent like 10 minutes playing with stuff to see how she liked the layout and how I could do things, because I ended up doing so much of it on my end. So yeah, it's kind of been a team effort. Certainly for the corporate events, I'm trying to encourage them to take the lead and tell me exactly what they want. But obviously people react better to seeing things and asking for changes rather than just being able to tell. So I've made up a bunch of stuff. For the realtors, I was like, give me your logo, give me what colors you use. And then I kind of just did some generic, you know, backgrounds in the different colors and threw their logo on things in different ways, so they could see what things are. For the other event, they kind of let me go for a while, and then they finally shot back some a PowerPoint of like what they wanted the holding slides and stuff to be, which was super helpful, because they had a lot of picky people on their teams. Aurora people are less picky, so there's a little bit more freedom, that especially for these Aurora Connects that we're now doing every single week. No one is super concerned with everything being perfect, which is a little bit of a learning curve for everybody, that we're just kind of doing stuff. And a lot of the stuff, especially with this live producing, is on the fly. And, you know, I sometimes push video out that isn't super perfectly lined up and all of that. And then I try and fix it as we go. But it's more important to get something up and going. It's more important to have that image be there and interesting than it being perfect. So, Danny, did you have a question?
I do. I have another topic of question, because I've talked to you, obviously. So can you talk to us a bit about the gala? Because I know Aurora did a virtual gala this year, and then so first talking about the gala, and then like how you incorporated all of that crowdy crap into like your OBS, et cetera, and like getting artists to perform for you. And then the second question I have is like, how did you get all of your less technically woke people onto like your gala? Because that was another thing. Like I attended and I registered and I like had to do all of this stuff to like even bid, and it was very complicated but also very well laid out. But I also anticipated that you had a lot of patrons who were very confused, but you also raised a lot of money. So I just would like to talk about the gala as a whole, because I know that a lot of our watchers / participants in this cohort are very interested in knowing about how to engage older audiences in something that they're not as comfortable with, and also like how do you raise money in this pandemic time?
Yeah, so you know, we decided our gala was originally scheduled for May, and we decided to go virtual pretty quickly, and then pushed the date back even farther to July. We had been doing Aurora Connects, so that was like the vision for it very quickly became a little bit hyped up version of Aurora Connects. so then through that through the weeks and weeks that I had practicing and all of that, we were able to kind of make it just a little bit nicer. We did pre-record most of it. So that was another learning curve for me, is that we recorded it in theory like we were doing it live, but just having it recorded. And then because so many people wanted to make changes after that, I ended up going back through and learning how to use video editing software, and went back through and essentially recreated everything in video editing software, using the templates and layouts that I had created for OBS, but pulling those into video editing software. That was a learning curve also, tried to get that done. So we did most of the talking and stuff was all the performances were pre-recorded. And then when we got to our live Fun to Need, we went live for the rest of the show. So the Fun to Need and then our closing statements were live. But yeah, it was most of it was a learning curve. Our artists, we just put an ask out to them and said, will you do something? We did pay them. I think we gave them each $100 as a little thank you. We're like, we know this isn't enough and this isn't really whatever, but please. And they all recorded, a couple minutes. Bay Area Cypher actually used the same one for us in TBA, which was, it was fine. It's a great piece. And we did pay each of those artists $100 for performing. So, we're trying to give money back to artists, and we really want the artists to be included in all this stuff. But yeah, so Josh just asked everybody, and they all said yes, luckily. So they just, sent me videos for us to incorporate. Lance Gardner was our MC, and he did do it as a volunteer. He is also on our board, so but he was a great MC. So that was, that was great. Greater Giving was the software that we used for our auction and Fund to Need. And as Danny said, it was a little complicated. We've certainly learned how to better get across that information and stuff next time. Kendra, our special events development associate, spent a lot of time on the phone with our high-end donors, teaching them and walking them through step by step how to get on stuff. Part of the reason we kept it, we did just stream it on YouTube, is we wanted to keep it really available to people. And I think even most of our older patrons can deal with YouTube now. And you can put YouTube on your TV. It was a big thing we talked about as well, is that if people did want to watch it on their Roku or whatever, that YouTube is an easy option for that. And then the money site was totally separate. So there was definitely a lot of people who watched without being registered for the auction and giving. But yeah, Kendra walked a lot of people through those registration links on the phone one by one, because it wasn't like a 2-process registration and you had to go onto this other site and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it wasn't easy. It wasn't great. And Greater Giving had some crashes and stuff like that. But I do think we got enough people and we got the right people registered and on there. The auction had a bunch of fun stuff that did really well. People were fighting over stuff. I think the reason we did so well raising money is that we had a fun event and it wasn't about the money. We, really the first 40 minutes were talking and performances, and it wasn't about the money. The auction, we said, hey, we're having an auction, and spotlighted a couple of the auction items, but really we didn't talk about that at all in our broadcast. And it was just fun, and we just wanted people to watch and have a good time. And I think that made people really feel like they were connected and that it was a good experience and it wasn't just us asking for money. And then when we moved into Fund to Need, we did go live and people got to see their names pop up and stuff. So we had a lot of, but it was so late. I think that it was 40 minutes in. I think people felt like they had watched something and they'd participated in art, and were feeling really good by that point of wanting to be part of Aurora. And we kept it short. I think that went a long way too, is that we, other than the Fund to Need, which was probably about 15 minutes long, maybe a little longer, I don't really remember, but we did just kind of keep it going as we saw names popping up. Lance was really good about, going from the 5,000 and then going down until we were like, give whatever you want, give us $1. So, and we had a lot of artists give, especially stage managers, which was really cool and nice, and really, it was like, oh, we're connected, you guys. Felt really good. But yeah, I mean, I think that was a part of the reason we were a big success, is just because we didn't try and raise money. I mean, it was obviously a whole big thing to raise money, but it was about the art and just being connected and making that point of feeling, doing something good and fun, and making our patrons feel like they were with us for a reason. I don't use a backstage. We just have Zoom. We just have Zoom, and I literally cut, I do a display capture. This may be gibberish to all of you, but if you've done any OBS, I do display capture and capture people's screens straight from Zoom and plug them into my OBS. So, you know, if I need to talk to them, we use the Zoom chat. We had a Google Doc open that was somewhat successful to talk between me and different staff members. Like if people called in donations, which was also an option that they could do. Our box office was on call. We had a Google Doc open so I could grab those names from them. But yeah, otherwise, you know, we all have Slack. We, as a staff, are using Slack, so there was a good amount of chatter going on there. But in terms of backstage, it was really just, we were all in a Zoom call. And you know, everybody keeps their video on the whole time so that the squares don't move around on me. Which is the same that we do during Connects, is it's like, everyone, you have to leave your video on. I don't care if you walk away, leave your video on. Keep yourself unmuted, you know, just don't touch anything. But, you know, things happen, and we've had a couple of times that people have lost video or whatever, and I just get it back as fast as I can. That is one of the things with doing it through Zoom, is that it does, you know, if I lose somebody's video, I lose everybody's video for a minute in some ways, because all my perfectly edited squares are now in weird spots, because Zoom reorders themselves all the time. So yeah, I'm learning curve. I definitely have a panic screen on all of my OBS layouts that is just a display capture of everything. So if I really get screwed up, I can just instantly go to everybody on screen, and it'll lose the prettiness, but everybody will be there. And then I, you know, also have we're experiencing technical difficulties holding slide, just because if you have it, you won't use it. If you don't have it, you'll regret it. So yeah, we've got a lot of different communication methods, I guess. As much as I'm saying we don't do any, but we do seem to have a couple sides. And I mean, people text me, especially with these Aurora Connects. I found when I am having technical difficulties, I'm so focused on trying to fix them that text message is the best way to reach me, because then it's not another computer program and it's a separate device that is talking to me. And I've told, you know, everybody that at work. I'm like, guys, if you need, like, if something is really going wrong, text me, because, and there's a certain amount that I don't see being on this end of it that they're seeing on that end of it, that we catch sometimes, like sound problems have been a little strange sometimes, because I'm like hearing the monitor from different, you know, I'm like hearing I'm not hearing the stream, I'm hearing my computer and all of this stuff. So yeah.
How many tech individuals did you have for the event, for example, that you were talking about, the gala? Just you? Wow.
My technical director is somewhat helpful, because everybody was in their own homes. Like, we had plans to make everybody in the theater, and then I was gonna have my technical director with me to like make all the webcams and all that, be a second person. But when everybody's in their own homes, you know, you can't really share responsibilities. It's hard. You know, OBS is on my computer. There's been a lot of times that I would love a second pair of hands to be doing something, and it's like, you just can't. Like, it has to be me in my garage. Because for one of my events last week, I did have another stage manager with me, and we set up a computer behind me at the desk so that we could be in the same room on two separate, you know, we were doing two different streams, which is why there had to be two of us. But, you know, we set her up behind me and both wore masks all day and all that good stuff, so that we could talk to each other and try to run the event. But yeah, it's pretty much just been me. My technical director is a gamer, so he like understands all the computer stuff. And he has done OBS a little bit, simple stuff. So he kind of knows it. And if for whatever reason I go out, he is our backup plan. But he's like, yeah, I won't do any of this. I'll just have them up on Zoom. Like, it's going to be super simple. So yeah, we're learning. Are there sound editing options in OBS? Can you deal with levels and reverb? So I have not dealt with too much of that. The downfall of Zoom and also of Skype, which we did venture into for a minute, is from all of these calls, the audio is all one package. So the advantage to using Skype is videos are all separate, so you can just pull videos directly from Skype as a separate thing instead of cutting out all the different pieces, but the audio is still singular, which is a big pain in the butt, and there's no good answer to, because yeah, it is sometimes Josh, our artistic director, is very loud, and by sometimes I mean all the time. And we are working to try and get him to be quieter and stop using his stage voice. But it's certainly a thing, and you know, everybody's volume is different, everybody's talking volume is different, everyone's microphones are different, and there's not a good way to do that. We're talking about getting like these little ones for everybody, so at least we're all using the same microphone, which will help with input all being the same. For like Aurora Connects, but anytime we have a guest on, it's not like we're going to send them the tech, so then we're still going to be separate and different. For our readings, we are talking about doing some more standardization in terms of mics and lights, and trying to get people to be a little bit more similar. But yeah, I know people are like using QLab and then into OBS, or using another sound editing thing into OBS and doing that, but then the people in Zoom can't hear it. So it's, yeah, I have not ventured into all of that because we're just doing talk shows. You know, I've much more done the talk show than the interesting sound part of it. But I know people are starting to mess with it, and I know that sound is the biggest difficulty for absolutely everyone right now. Because there's always going to be a little bit of a delay. It's going to get off from video. It's, you know, you can only put sound one way or not the other way, or whatever it is. I can put sound from my OBS into Zoom, but then I can't talk. Like, I can't do both at the same time using my microphone that I have set up now. You can kind of hear it over my microphone if I just have sound playing. So like, we've done that a couple of times to like let people hear the sound, but not be overwhelmed by it. Yeah. Yeah, traveling guest mic, exactly. Except germs, so 2 weeks between microphone usage, and you know, yeah, that's certainly a thing is who gets what. We are sending microphones, good microphones, to our actors who are doing the audio drama. We are going to put a full good digital mic, you know, like $100 digital microphone. We're going to send out to them, and some sort of like soundproofing. They sell them now that are like little tripod things. So we're testing out a bunch of stuff right now because we will be sending our audio drama actors that. So then we at Aurora will have a couple good microphones that potentially we could send out. But for like the Aurora Connects guests, it's you know, it just doesn't really seem worth it. And sometimes we have 4 guests, and then what, you know, so it gets bigger. But yeah, the germs also certainly make all this harder.
Any other questions? Thank you so much, Amanda. This is amazing.
And please feel free to reach out if anybody has questions. I'll drop my email in the chat, and you're welcome to email me.
I was wondering how much editing did you do? You mentioned briefly the editing part, which also, like, you'd seem like you had to learn a lot of new programs on the spy. So just amazing just on that. I'm curious, how much editing did you have to do?
So for the live streams, it's all live editing. You know, it's editing in terms of flipping back and forth between screens. It's not going back and correcting it. For our gala, I did a lot of editing and re-edited most of that video frame by frame, essentially. And we took a pass at the sound, and then I reincorporated the sound into the video. Like, we did some pretty video editing. I also did a bar mitzvah as a side gig that we zoomed a bar mitzvah. So me and my technical director went with microphones and cameras and did the bar mitzvah. We were live streaming it on Zoom, but then I fully went and edited that video incorporating the Zoom and the family and all the comments and stuff back into the live video to give them as a final product. So yeah, my video editing skills are much more basic than my OBS skills. I'm definitely better at the live editing at this point. But you know, I'm learning. I'm good with computers and good with graphic manipulation and have done a lot of that in Photoshop and stuff through the years. So, and it's all this, you know, it's all versions of the same. So it takes a minute to be like, where is this thing in this program? But once you find it, you're like, oh, okay, I can do this. But yeah, it's a lot of trial and error, and it's tedious.
That's amazing. Anything else from the group that wants to ask Amanda, or any specifics that came from that conversation that we would like to discuss more? Thank you so much, Amanda. That was amazing. Thank you for coming and thank you for sharing. And congrats on all the projects and everything. I know that one topic that came in the conversation in the intros was the allocating funding to digital versus the physical, or like leaving that, and that seemed really something that stuck with me. And any thoughts on how, or any experiences anyone is already having in that conversation, or anything that already is dealing with that in relationship to how you divide the funding between digital versus what you keep for the physical work? I know, Sabrina, you brought that up.
One thing I'm aware of is that, you know, given that I'm thinking in terms of a year, because that's that funding cycle basically, is, and because we usually use for our live events the facilities of Amherst College while the students are away, which makes us limited for our easy use of space to July and the beginning of August. So that's sort of what I'm thinking about for the return to live. But one of the things that I'm thinking about is, especially because we're in a college area where most of the students are away, our audience does tend to skew older, adventurous, super smart, but tends to skew older. And so I'm thinking a lot about, you know, how are they going to come back to live things, and whether they'll come back to live things. Do we need to dual produce? Do we need to stream a live event so that people can have the option? But just part of it is to think about, you know, lower box office revenues, which may make it even more important to save grant funding to replace earned income type funding. And also because I think the individual giving, as the pandemic takes its toll, which I think we're just seeing the very beginning of. I think that's going to be in trouble. And then, you know, right now we've been in a situation where a lot of states or different kinds of funding sources have been trying to throw money at helping people through the pandemic, but that wave of that is going to run out. And then their own sources are going to be in jeopardy because some of them are derived through tax revenue or various kinds of things. So I think the funding scene that way is kind of gloomy, which makes me feel like a little chipmunk saving my nuts for the winter, because I think we do the live thing better than the digital thing, and that's really where, you know, my heart is to some extent. Well, no, to a huge extent. So but thinking about hybrid has possibilities, I think, dual tracking. So
Yeah, I also wonder, like, we tend sometimes to think just naturally in like the Zoom as the reduced version of the production, and sometimes I think it's the opposite in the other, like, because I personally find that it takes more time to do the work over Zoom than it is to do physical. I don't know if anyone else has any experience in that direction.
I mean,
or how much, yeah.
our shows usually take 1 to 3 years to make. So, and we're usually presenting work by other artists who come, some are local, but a lot are national. So, there's a whole thing about travel that we're trying to figure out as well. And some of our pieces are site specific, some are, not. But because as a practicing artist, a lot of my work is as a lighting designer. We tend to spend a lot of time with our artists in the theater. So everybody, it's not like a usual festival schedule. Everybody gets a week. So you've got, days and days of, many, many hours of tech time with a full crew. And it's I don't feel it the same way. Although the most successful version of that has been watching the pre-taped, the documentary work of Sandglass Theater, because their whole puppet form is based on breath. And if any of you are interested, we're actually good. They are going to be streaming not this Tuesday, but a week from tomorrow, Degeneration, which is a show that started at Co-Festival, but it's a piece about dementia. And the puppets play the old people and the puppeteers play the caretakers. And because their whole performance style is based on Tai Chi, it's and their whole form of puppetry is based on that breath and not enslaving the puppet, but animating puppets. And the scale of that transfers a bit better to video than some of the other stuff. So if any of you are interested also in thinking about the aesthetics of puppetry and the digital world, there's been some interesting stuff like with the Toy Theater series that's been going on, but that's a conversation also about live performers and puppet performers and how those things work in the world of digital media.
I was curious if the particular funding you were considering, is it unrestricted?
It's kind of miracle funding. It was like, well, tell us what you'd like to do, but we're not going to hold you to it. And tell us how you think you'd spend some money, but we're not asking you to actually ask for a specific amount. But tell us what you think the costs might be of what you might want to do, but we won't hold you to it, kind of funding. So it was sort of visionary funding that was very much about this this particular moment in time for folks. And just because they haven't put out a press release yet, I'm not naming the funder, but it's by some funders, especially arts-based funders, really get it, like really get it. Because with other funders, I'm on my third round of like, well, we can't do what we wrote the grant for, but we're going to do this. And they've said, that's okay. And then somebody gets sick or something else happens, and your plan B is now your plan C. And one of the things I had planned to do, I'm now on to plan D with the same funder. And it gets a little weird when you have to go back to them again and again. It's like, well, can't do that. Not safe to do that. This person is ill with the virus, so it's nice when the funding opportunity comes with an understanding of that built in, so that you're not sort of doing a walk of shame back to the funder again. And some of what we're talking about is tiny amounts. And by the time you've taken the time to do, version D for a $500 grant, it just gets to be kind of nuts making. All right, that's my rant.
Thank you, Sabrina, for sharing, and congratulations again. now I think we are nearing our time, but someone else here also brought up the question of like, how do we find out about what's going on or what events are happening? Does anyone have any resources that they would like to share of where do you follow up any events, or how do you find out about things before they happen so we could attend?
Kholoud, Tanya here. Would you mind if I circle back? I just want to see if I can tie some things together, and I'll try to also tie it forward to that. But I just think that it would be great for us, you know, if not today, to have some more conversations about what those hybrid events look like, because I think there's so much uncertainty in terms of how we're going back, when we're going back, and then what is the we? I mean, obviously in Canada, you know, we've got a much more privileged situation here. We're in a phase 3 of reopening, and even then we have a lot of uncertainty because there's sort of case by case interpretation of what are the Ministry of Health guidelines, and timing around this stuff matters too in terms of like rates of infection and how much planning do you sort of already have in-house to be able to do an outdoor and indoor event. So I'd be really curious to hear people's thoughts on what those could look like, using Zoom and also, you know, doing something in person. Oh, and I didn't circle back because what I should give is a shout out to Kholoud, Shukran, for introducing me to Andrea. There's a one-time, very live, very ephemeral piece that happened through Art to Action that I got to be the tech support for, and it went beautifully. And the way I would link it back to this conversation is actually it was a group of people who performed a play together at the University of Florida in person 5 years ago. So when you translate, and this particular script worked really, really well on Zoom, 9 Parts of Desire by Heather Ruffalo, hopefully many of you know it. The chemistry of the cast was there. So I don't know if that helps anybody thinking about if you are reviving something. In this case, we had folks from Japan, Chicago, California, obviously Tampa, New York, a couple places in New York where they didn't even know the other part of the city. So it was beautiful to do a reunion. So if you ever have needed an excuse for a reunion tour of a show, like, let me encourage you that the pandemic is it, depending on the script and if it works, but the chemistry of the cast, having already known each other, I think makes a stronger online performance. So sorry I didn't put that in everything happened really, really fast last week. It was on Friday, but happy to chat with anyone sort of offline. Message me if you have questions.
Tanya, I think we have some time if you want to share a little bit about that experience or any discoveries from that.
Sure. I guess I would, in terms of linking to what we've already chatted about as a community group here, this show that Daryl Davis spoke afterwards and did a Q&A. So Sabrina at Co-Festival sort of gave a model for theater, and we hadn't thought about really the understudy component of like, if the internet drops in Japan, then please excuse my cat who's attacking my feet, then what happens? So, you know, that was useful that learning was there to sort of have an off-camera backup sort of understudy, someone who knew the script well. And we were working actually just, you know, Andrea's been on these calls. I hope she'll come back and chat with us more. She's got lots on the go. But in the meantime, I'm happy to share just my point of view. It was really only the two of us. We were worried about Zoom bombing, and thankfully didn't have to encounter any of that nonsense and hatred. And so it really came together. I was doing sound cues on my computer, just, you know, the old fashioned turn up the volume, turn down the volume, like try to work around Zoom and the levels. So Amanda, I can definitely relate to, you know, thinking I got it all right because it sounds good on my computer, and then being like, oops, I forgot to share the sound again because I had to, you know, rejig the cue. So just the two of us on the production, 11 actors, about an hour and a half. I think someone asked, is it still available online? No, it's totally Sabrina, thanks for your question, and thanks for coming to the slam yesterday. It's totally ephemeral. So the Heather Ruffalo, the playwright, asked that it was just sort of like a reading, but we really managed with sound and a couple of rehearsals thrown together to make it more of a performance. And we had folks from overseas joining in to see a play that they never would have otherwise been able to see, and it sparked a great conversation afterwards. No one wanted to leave the Zoom. And some great ideas about what might be next. So hope that helps fill you in.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm so glad it worked out so great. And thank you for bringing the question about the combination of hybrid and in person. That's such a great question and such a great point. Anyone would like to offer any thoughts on that, or even like, here's where I'm lost with that? Joshua, you want to say something?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, just off the top of my head, I guess we would have to have a couple live stream cameras. It's not that I've done this before. I'm just thinking off the top of my head how you might actually be able to do it. So I know that the GoPro can do that, and they can live stream what they're filming, and so that way you could at least have maybe a medium shot and a close-up shot that you could go in between in OBS and actually live edit. That's off the top of my head a way that we might be able to do it live with a small audience and then also stream at the same time. You could do like a webcam and do something Facebook Live. That's the cheapest option, right? Like on your phone or something like that. But if you actually want to edit it on the fly, I guess you'd have to have a couple live stream cameras that are high quality.
The folks at HowlRound did a great workshop at Co on live streaming. There's a lot of stuff out there about how to do it. One of the reasons I've been hesitant to do it before is I didn't want to take away from the live audience. I didn't want, especially because we've tended to pay artists on a box office split, so it was important for us to keep, revenue up for them. But now that we've figured out how to charge for things that we're streaming online through our website and sending out a code ahead of time, we've sort of solved in some ways that part. So I think that we could actually increase what an artist would get, or increase our revenue rather than decrease it, which was my fear before. So I think what we could do is get more of a national audience, and that could make up for some of the, discrepancies that way. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, sorry. There's been a lot of conversations about this in the production managers, I'm in a production managers forum, which is national. Some are already doing it and have been doing it forever, using things like GoPros, and there's a lot of really good cameras out now. I mean, this camera that I'm using is 1080p, and it was $40. There's good webcams now, so it's getting a good video shot is not hard. And if you do just use good webcams, then it can be as simple as going through OBS or vMix or Studio 6 or any of these other programs to do stuff. And I think the conversation is certainly there about how to do that and how we're doing that. And, I'm dealing with unions. We're an equity theater, and we're on SAG contracts for all of our online content. So we're in the union place of like, how is this okay and how is it not, and all of that kind of stuff. Equity has a lot of rules about streaming that they're figuring out, because it is going to be a thing that people are expecting now to be able to get content online. And even more so, the conversation that's come up a few times is like, okay, what's the sick policy? Obviously, if our patrons are sick, they're not allowed in the theater anymore, ever. Like, I think we're at a place where they're just never coming back. And so ticket cancellations, you've always never been able to cancel your tickets, but now if you're ill, like we don't want you coming. So what is the live streaming version for the sick policy? Like, can you just see that particular performance as a sick, can you get a sick ticket or whatever to be online? So the conversation is certainly happening, and GoPros are a great option. There's a couple other cameras that I've seen pop up. And, all of these lists are coming up online of what's the best option and what's the cheapest option and all of that kind of stuff. to do it. And Howl Around has a lot of great resources because they've been doing it for a long time. They're not new to this, so that's super helpful. We actually live streamed an event with them earlier this year with Claudia. So yeah, it's you know, it's certainly a conversation, and I really think that it is forever the conversation. I don't think we're ever going back to just having things in the theater. I don't believe that that's ever going to be the full breadth of our producing anymore. Certainly at Aurora, we're talking about keeping our talk shows going, maybe not weekly once we're back in the theater, but you know, certainly keeping it going. And how do we keep this connection with the national audience, with the international audience? How do we keep doing this? Yes, if you can connect your camera to your computer, you can live stream.
Yeah, Amanda, that's really helpful in terms of, I'm curious about the thinking around this, because I noticed that there's sort of a polarity based on maybe like level of denial or maybe privilege or both, of like, when are we going back live? When are we going back live? When are we going back live? And then there's some of us who are realizing like, okay, well, how? What will it look like? So I think envisioning theater and performance and poetry slams and even certain education settings as they were is risky, dangerous, naive, like nostalgic. And so, you know, I think the more collective thought we can give to like reimagining them, the better the transfer of the thing will be. So for example, with the Toronto Poetry Slam, like, yes, we used to do some live streaming just through Instagram live, and we had covered live tweets on Twitter. So it was sort of easy for us to think about, you know, March 13th, okay, what does the next level look like? How can we do this online? How can we make it interactive? But having a small audience and going back to being together in person, you know, to me, there's a bunch of safety protocols there, but what are the critical numbers in terms of making it feel like a show in person? And where do you put the emphasis? Are you putting together a production that looks better in person? Does that always translate through to something that looks better online? And, you know, can you design for both audiences, or when are they mutually exclusive? Like, those are the set of questions that I think our communities need to give a lot of thought and attention to. So yes, you can have a camera and just, you know, stream anytime. That's great. But to me, that's sort of prioritizing the in-person audience and says like, hey, show up. And that's, you know, the online production is the afterthought, which is still great for accessibility. I would hate to see the loss of that integration based on, you know, the sort of necessary progress we've made in the last few months. But, you know, if it's a smaller group, what is it? What else can it look like? Those questions are curious for me.
Yeah, I wonder if it's, I mean, I wonder if the combination is more like TV capturing on camera as opposed to film capturing on camera. Because in TV, you're still basing it that your measurement unit is the scene and not the shot. As long as you go to the shot-to-shot basis, you are going to film basis. And so I don't know. I'm just really wondering about that kind of, I did live directing for TV for a little bit, and it feels like tech forever. But I'm remembering that experience a lot because you get to corner one event from many directions, and you get to decide which placement you capture it from at each moment. And then also who does that? Like, now are we, you know, is it the stage director? Who does it? I don't have the answer.
Yeah, that's useful. I appreciate that. And I would just echo, like, when I was thinking of people to help with security on Friday, I was like, who can I call? Like, my friend from the Slam, I guess. I know 2 people who can do, like, technically I know more people here. You know, Danny, Kholoud, I could have been in touch with some folks, Sabrina. But like, what do you even call the thing that you're doing? Zoom security? And so how many different roles are there, and how complex does that get really quickly? You know, a lot of it isn't necessary. Some of it, in terms of just a baseline of production, is, you know, good enough, especially for something timely, but fertile ground here.
We're
That's
seeking
a great
those.
question.
Oh, we're seeking people for those events. We're usually looking for a stage manager or a virtual usher. So it seems.
Stage managers are great. Always hire a stage manager. That's my motto.
Or 2 or 3 when you're online and everything is new for everybody. Yeah, like I think it sometimes takes more.
Agreed, agreed, agreed. Thank you. Anything else we would like to discuss or reflect on or share more about in the same vein of the conversation? Thank you so much, Tanya, for taking us to that direction. Such a helpful conversation and a great one.
I have one quick little question for Amanda coming in here as a stage manager. That's used resources to acquire a new adaptation of this role. Do you find that there are other, do you find there's a community of stage managers out there that are doing the same thing as you? Like, is there a source or a consortium that are building this knowledge base in your field?
Yeah, so, Facebook groups. I hate to say it, but like Facebook groups all the way. There's an unofficial AEA stage managers group that I am in because I'm still an equity stage manager, and that there's been numerous conversations. The Stage Managers Association, SMA, has been starting to host a lot of information for stage managers about these Zoom, how to be a stage manager on Zoom. I hosted a hour-long conversation for whoever wanted to come with some stage managers who've been doing projects, just so that anybody that wanted to could chat. And we started the conversations. But yeah, Facebook has connected me with a lot of people who are doing similar things. And I'm finding myself much more on the producing side and telling stage managers that they need to learn OBS to learn the verbiage. They should not be running OBS. And I'm passionately sticking to that with every conversation I've ever had, is that stage managers should not be running OBS. It's not only running a light board, it's programming the light board at the same time. And stage managers need to be with the people in the conversation and be there with they shouldn't be dealing with the tech. Some can do it. I'm obviously one of them, but I think it's a different job. But the conversations are flowing within stage management communities. Year of the Stage Manager on Facebook. I don't know if any of you have heard of this thing. 2020 was supposed to be the year of the stage manager. It's a big movement in equity because Actors Equity is also the stage managers union. And there's a big conversation of getting stage management more recognized and understood, not only in the theater community, but in the bigger conversation. And even renaming Actors Equity because stage managers are not actors. Anyways, it's a big conversation. And then the year of the stage manager decided that 2020 was a bad year to have as our year, and have extended it to 2021 as well. So there's 2 years of the stage manager because this year was just not good. But that has a lot of good resources, and anybody can join that Facebook group. It has a lot of conversations about all of this and everything else going on. It's a great resource. We use the YouTube captioning for Aurora Connects. We just let YouTube do it. I've looked into some other stuff. We don't have we're a small team. We don't have the budget to do any live captioning other than that. For our audio drama, we're certainly going to post a version on YouTube that has the rolling text. That'll be produced. I'll probably edit a video together with some still image and rolling text to match it with the video. For our readings, we're going to do the script text through the readings somehow. I haven't quite figured out the details of it yet, but yeah, we're going to do that as much as we can for readings. But for live conversation, I'm just letting YouTube do it at this point. If we ever do something bigger where we have a larger audience, I'm probably going to push for either a service or something to join on, but with 20 people and it being YouTube is good enough for these conversations, I feel like at our level. If we do anything bigger that is not a script reading, then I will probably push to hire a company to do it. But they are expensive and all of that. There's workarounds you can find online too of Google Speech. Going back through OBS, there's a lot of plugins and stuff that people have developed so that like the internet, Google Speech will do the closed captioning for you essentially. Again, it's not great, it's the automated one, but it's at least a free version that gets us closer. So yeah, it's definitely on my list that I'm keeping, making sure we have an option for that on all of our presentations. We're not. We're not really pushing any marketing right now. We're trying to figure out how to do our marketing differently in this new world. And even before this, we were starting to have the conversations. Aurora started working on a lot of the conversations now with Josh Costello coming on as our artistic director. We really did start doing a lot of this work. Our 2021 season was 50% BIPOC, 50% women. Like, we had a really, really great season, and we've been doing a lot of, diversity work. We brought Claudia in a couple times. We're trying. Aurora was like trying really hard to have these conversations before all of this, so we're a little bit ahead. But in terms of marketing, we're having the conversations now of like, how do we market to people that are not our audience? Our marketing structures have been built and are set up for years and years and years and years to be marketing to our current ticket sales, to our subscribers, to people who've bought tickets. We are not currently set up to market outside of that realm right now. We're having the conversation about how to do that, how to incorporate not only disabled communities or anything like that, but BIPOC communities, how to get people interested in the theater that are not already here. And our marketing team is not set up for that currently. So it's definitely a conversation that we are starting to have of how much of our energy do we put towards that? Because as soon as we start taking it away from we do need the revenue from the tickets, how to move those pieces around and figure out that game of how much money do you put towards this versus this. So it's definitely a conversation we're having now of how to expand our audience and how to expand our marketing. Because currently we really don't. We market to our patrons.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you for sharing, Amanda. Apologies that we were in a couple minutes beyond our scheduled time, and thank you for staying with us, everyone. No. Thank you, Amanda, for sharing all the great knowledge. It was really great. And I will go ahead and stop recording, and we will go to the planning session after.